Hey, Houston. All right. Good evening. And I know it's more people than just Houstonians or people from Texas who will check out this video, but the love is certainly here for Houston. So, good evening. I am the Pretty Professor, and this is Pretty Petty Politics. And so, this evening, I will briefly, briefly discuss. I always say that, and I know I go much longer, but I'm going to bed tonight. I'm not staying up late tonight. But briefly, I will discuss things that have happened since we last met here on Pretty Petty Politics on the platform. So, since Friday evening, I want to catch us up with everything, not everything, but many of the things that have taken place since Friday. Friday, we discussed the break in decorum that took place in Austin at the Capitol during the first congressional redistricting hearing for this special session of the Texas legislature. So we covered that on Friday night. We covered the break in decorum. We looked at the video footage, fully vetted it. One could argue that we vetted it very well. And then we talked about the release. Of course, Isaiah Martin was released, as he should have been. I don't think anybody wanted him to be arrested or wanted him to remain in jail that long. I'm still questioning why. I'm questioning his team as well as the authorities. Why was he there that long? But that's not even important. But what is important is Saturday, this past Saturday, the 26th, the second congressional redistricting hearing took place here in Houston at the University of Houston. And that was a very long day. And I attended. I was there. I had to wait out in the front. There's a lot of people there. But once I made it into the hearing room, I was impressed with the panels and the speakers who shared their thoughts and considerations regarding this redistricting proposal. I enjoyed people watching. There were people from all over the state of Texas, all over Southeast Texas and East Texas, here in the Houston metro area, but all the way up towards the Louisiana border in those counties, like from Jasper and from what's that other place? I want to say Tyler. There were people from everywhere. So I want you to know that not just Houstonians, but Texans are really taking this serious. Last night, the hearing was held on the 28th. It was held at the University of Texas at Arlington. There was one gentleman I watched who testified who'd driven 3 hours from Abilene to Arlington, Texas to testify. Texans are not playing about their voting. Texans are not playing about this redistricting that is being threatened or held over our heads. On Thursday, at that first hearing in Austin, there was a young man who testified about 4 hours and maybe 22 minutes into the hearings, because the hearings are very long. They're hours long. Speakers get 2 minutes, right? But the young man who testified, I want to say his name was Nathaniel. He was like in a t-shirt. He had copies, and he submitted those copies to the clerk. He had copies of a map that displayed his congressional district. And his purpose of sharing that was to emphasize just how gerrymandered our districts already are. Okay. On Friday, I promised that in my class this week, we would do a case study on these hearings, particularly on what happened Thursday night, because I know my students are on social media. So I knew that it was more likely than not that they had seen, or several of them had seen, the viral moment. So we unpacked the viral moment as what was put out by the campaign, and then others shared it. We looked at the varying headlines. I saw one headline that said, "Candidate shoved to the ground." And all the students were like, he wasn't shoved. So I implore you, if you did not watch our Friday night video, to go back and watch it, or just pull up The hearings, the Texas redistricting hearing for Austin on what day was that? Thursday, the 24th of July. And fast forward to about 4 hours and 22 minutes, and then watch the next 12 minutes. Watch about the next 10 to 12 minutes, and you will see the young man I just spoke on, who had the map that he questioned the dais, so meaning the elected officials, about that committee. He questioned the committee. And then immediately thereafter, you have the testimony of Isaiah Martin. All right. So let's move on. That's your homework, to look at it and check it out for yourself. Right. But I will say my students concluded that it looked like it was a planned or plotted. These are young people. These are young voters. These are people ages 18 to late 20s. But when they watched it, their opinions, varying vocabulary, but their opinions were, yes, it's great. Sometimes you do have to stand up, necessary trouble, or as John Lewis would say, good trouble. But this was more than that. This was not just a break in decorum. This was intentional. They said it seemed planned. Once they understood the procedures, the 2-minute thing, it wasn't that he ran overtime that upset them, but it was that how he ran overtime and how he responded after receiving basically grace. So we unpacked it today. It was probably the most robust class that we've had these past 2.5 weeks. As you know, summer school is only 5 weeks per summer semester, what have you. So we will continue with that discussion in class, but I implore you to check it out for yourself. So the reason why we're here tonight, besides recapping those things, again, go back and watch our Friday night broadcast right here on YouTube at Pretty Petty Politics. You can watch it here on YouTube. Go back and watch Friday nights, but watch this one first, okay? So today, or this morning, I received an iMessage. I received a message from a good girlfriend who is in this space, who shares this space, this political space. And she shared the University of Houston's poll. So the University of Houston has done a study of a population of about 400 people here in the 18th Congressional District. And the results don't surprise me at all. Okay. They've done a study, and this is necessary, right? So they've polled locally. They've asked the questions locally. I do it all the time. I don't do it on the same scale of U of H, but I do it in various populations, various rooms, various socioeconomic scenarios, various age groups. I ask the questions. I may be in a hair salon. I may be at a restaurant. I may be running errands and in the grocery store, right? It may be intentional. I may call people and ask them to join me on a Zoom so we can discuss. The reason why I do that is so I can get a feel for how the community is perceiving what is happening with this race, with this special election. So if you're not aware, the special election will be November 4th. There will be early voting about 10 days prior to Election Day, but there is not a large, the expectation is not for a large group of registered voters for the 18th Congressional District to show up. There just isn't. It's a special election. For one, it's not in people's mind. It's not in the forefront. It's not like it's a presidential election or gubernatorial election where more people come out. So we're expecting a much smaller group of people to show up for that election, right? That is what's going to make this whole race even more challenging. Firstly, any of you know how many people in this race? I mean, I can't keep up. There's damn near 30 people in this race. I think the latest name that I know who has entered this race, who has filed to be in this election, is former Houston City Councilman and former Texas State Representative Jarvis Johnson. Now, how did I feel? At this point, the gloves are off. We've made it through July. We have like 2 days off. So I've been keeping it real, but I'm about to keep it extra real. So Jarvis Johnson has jumped into this race. I would have preferred him to be a statesman and not jump in this race. Not because, oh, he's a threat, because I don't think he's a threat to any of the contenders. I think that it is somewhat disingenuous for him to enter this race this late into the summer. And this late into the summer, meaning last week, within the last 10 days. I'm pretty sure he entered like last Monday, maybe Tuesday. But for him to enter the race after July 1st, I'm going to just call it that. For him to have entered this race in July, it just doesn't seem like he's really taking it serious. And I mentioned weeks ago that he was on a panel. I think this is in May. He was on a panel out at Acres Home, at the Acres Home Multi-Service Center in North Houston. And he shared then, and it was like probably 10 of them on the panel that night. He shared, well, I'm not in the race yet. I want to hear from the people. What do the people want? No, what do you want? The people will show you what they want when they vote, right? But what do you want? Do you want to represent us in Congress? See, I need you to be serious. Are you healthy enough to represent us in Congress? I mean, mentally, physically, spiritually, are you whole enough to represent us? We suffered 2 losses in under a year with our representatives. So we're not playing with y'all when it comes to running for this office. And this is not about ageism. This is just like overall. And candidates in this race can tell you, I asked them these same type of questions. Now, I haven't spoken to everyone, but I've spoken to several of them. Do you have the capacity, not just for this race, but to hold this office? And I think every single voter needs to ask these candidates, as you come across these candidates, do you even have the capacity? But I don't think you're going to have to ask too many of them, because I predict that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, starting this week, but within the next 2 to 3 weeks, the number of candidates will shrink down. There are over 20 in this race. I expect by mid-August, by August 15th, that's a Friday, I expect by August 15th for this race to dwindle down to under 10 candidates. By the end of September, there should only be maybe 6 people in this race. Honestly, I won't do this to y'all. I won't give you the magic number, because the magic number, I'm gonna just stick with 6 for right now. But we could argue and say it should be less. And the reason being is this: save us the time. Save us the time. What do you think I mean by save us the time? Well, I'll tell you what I mean. I think that you should save us the time if you know your race is not viable at this point. If you haven't raised money to get your name out there, social media ain't it. You would have had to start the social media game over a year ago, right? And even people who have started the social media game over a year ago, they're not raising a lot of money. They're raising money, but it's very slow, right? This is on the grounds. This is network, right? Now, what happened Thursday night, I'm sure it's going to give a boost to the Martin campaign, but I don't know that it resonates with voters here in the congressional district. I don't know that that viral video resonates with CD18 voters en masse. I think that people have an opinion about it. I think people will feel how they're going to feel, but I don't know if that turns those people out to the polls in support. I think the funding that you will see in the next quarter that is received as a result of last Thursday, I think that funding, one, is not going to be greatly from this area. I think it'll be small donations from people who have seen it online and want to give, who are from all over the country, which is not uncommon, right? But I don't know that it's going to be enough. So we have some very big contenders in this race, and we've known this from day one. And so let's talk about those folks. We've talked about them. Darrell and I have talked about them on here, but let's talk about the front runners. And this is not just my opinion, even though I've been giving my opinion since day one, right? This is not just based on my opinion. This is based on actual polling done by political scientists from the Houston area, from University of Houston, from Rice. I'm not sure if Texas Southern contributed this time, but they typically do collaborate. The Barbara Jordan Michelina School of Public Affairs does collaborate with the Hobby School of Public Affairs. It's very common that those three universities, TSU, Rice, and U of H, collaborate during elections to look at polling, to look at the behaviors of voters and how voters are leaning. But I will say this, these are the people I think you should watch. And I'm going to say them in alphabetical order based on their last name. So don't nobody say I'm doing favoritism. Amanda Edwards, Jolanda Jones, and Christian Menifee. Those are your three. Those are your three that I think are the most viable in this race. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again why I think that way. Let's start with Jolanda Jones. Jolanda Jones has proven electability. Like a lover, can't stand her. Feel how you want to feel about her. Love her down. However you feel about Jolanda Jones, she has electability. She's bold. She's beautiful. She's brilliant. And she's going to give you a piece of her mind, right? She always shows up. She pisses some people off. She makes some people happy, but she's electable. What do you mean by electable? Houston City Council at large. At large means every voter in the city has the opportunity to vote for her. You're not voting by just where you live. As long as you're a resident of the city of Houston, inside the city limits, you could have participated in that. She's been elected citywide. Now think about how large Houston is. What does that mean? She has a way of connecting to people. All right. She has a way of connecting with people. So Jolanda Jones. The second person, I would say, the other thing about Jolanda Jones, and I just named one office. So she was elected to Houston City Council at large. She was elected to Houston Independent School District twice, I believe. And most recently, she was elected to the Texas State House of Representatives. She's currently my state rep, right? But she's in office. On Saturday, who was on the dais asking the tough questions to panelists? Jolanda Jones. She was able to do that because that is her job. She is elected. She works for us. That's her job to protect her constituents. Her constituents, many of her constituents, or most of her constituents, if I'm not mistaken, live in CD 18, most if not all, right? Because I'm not sure where it cuts down at the South, so that's why I'm saying most if not all. But I think it's all of her constituents probably are in the 18th, right? But it's safe to say majority, right? But so she had a duty, a responsibility as a resident of the 18th Congressional District, and also as someone who represents people of the 18th Congressional District. So she asked the tough questions. She used her platform. She used it well. Like, I was like, you better go, girl, like do that. And she did a really good job. You should go back and watch those hearings from Saturday. When the video's over, I will link as many resources as I can in the comments on YouTube so you can go back and click through them and see them for yourself. Okay. So Jolanda Jones, very viable. Now, fundraising wise, because she only announced June 5th, right? She announced in early June after the legislative session ended for Texas. Last Monday, the 21st, we went back into legislative session. So she had about 6 weeks to campaign before she had to go back into special session. So she had to go back to work at the State House. That is going to be a challenge for her, but it's also an opportunity for her. Again, like gloves are off tonight. I'm not holding back. I'm not playing favorites. Well, I ain't played favorites yet, but I am going to keep it 100. A lot of these candidates don't stand a chance, like at all, like competing on this level because they have not been prepared fully for such a race. I'll use this. I put a what do you call it? A magnet on the back of my car today that represents me running a marathon. And I shared a clip with one of my sorority sisters. She was like, what does that represent? And when I told her, I said, that represents that I completed a half marathon. When you're doing a half marathon or especially a marathon, but especially even a half marathon, that's not something you just show up and do. You got to have some training, baby. You don't just show up and run for Congress. You've got to have some training, maybe not political training, but leadership training on a large scale, right? You've got to have it. You have to have some training in terms of confidence and understanding policy and communicative skills. You've got to have it. So you can't show up and just jump in the race and think you're going to make it to the finish line. Hell, I ran to where the 12-mile marker was, and my right ankle was like, I know you lying. And so I hobbled. I just kept going that last mile because I wasn't going to drop out, right? I had made it that far. I had proven to myself what I could do. And that's one of the greatest achievements you can do if you can run a half marathon. Like, not a lot of people do it, but most people don't, right? Yeah, y'all might do some 5Ks, but a half ain't no joke. But I made it across the finish line. Some people are going to stay in this race and make it across the finish line, but they didn't train. They would have been weak since mile 2, right? Some of these candidates have been weak from the beginning. They not making it to mile 12 with 1.1 mile to go. They falling out at mile 2. Now, they might not say I quit, but they falling out. Now, here we are just months away, just a few months away. So August 4th is next Monday. So not next Monday. Is it next Monday? Yeah, August 4th is next Monday. So August 5th is that Tuesday. Then you have September, October, and then November. So we have just 3 months before this election, right? Because we're done with July. So all of August, all of September, all of October, in October, just a few days later, it's election day. In fact, early voting will start towards the end of October. You've got to be fit to run for office. And I'm not just talking about can you physically run. I mean, mentally, your fundraising got to be there. Your people skills got to be out there. You got to have a team. You need an army. That's why the fundraising is important, because you've got to support these people who are supporting your campaign, meaning those volunteers. There's still things that even if they say, hey, you don't have to pay me, there's still things and resources that you're going to have to make sure that they have. Equipment has to be in place to maximize your campaign. And some folks ain't raised, and if they have, they ain't reporting it. FEC.gov, you can check it for yourself. Many of these in this race have not shown any contributions to the FEC. Now, let's talk about who has raised money, right? Well, we'll talk about that next. So, Jolanda Jones, she's suited and booted, ready to go. I said it like in April, maybe late March, April. Darrell, it's a video of Darrell and I discussing it right here on YouTube. Darrell Douglas, who I love. I love Darrell. Like, y'all don't even know the gift that we have in our community that is Darrell Douglas. I can't wait to see what God is going to do for and through him in the future. But we discussed it. We said if Jolanda Jones gets in this race, if she enters this race, it's going to change the game. And it did. It did. She doesn't have money that's comparable to the other two that I named, but she has another type of resource. She has currency in the community. She has large name, household recognition. She's been in the game a long time, and she's still what we would call a younger candidate. Now, she's not as young as the other two, but she is still considered a young, mature, but a younger candidate. She's not retirement age, is what I'm saying. So we got Jolanda Jones, Texas State House, District 147. That's the first person I want to discuss. And we're talking electability, viable candidates, who are putting the work in, raising money, who has the structure, the infrastructure around them to have a successful campaign. So Jelanda Jones would be my first person I would talk about. Next, Amanda Edwards. Amanda Edwards. No, I'm doing that wrong. I started with Jones. I should have started with Menifee because his last name is M. So forgive me. Let me go to Menifee next, right? Because I want to do it in order. I think I'm just excited. But Christian Menifee. Christian Menifee, another person elected twice, citywide, or not even just citywide, countywide. He was elected twice across Harris County. Now, Harris County is a huge county. Yes, Houston is in Harris County, but so are other municipalities, Pasadena, Deer Park, LaPorte, places that we don't always consider and think of that are in Harris County, Bel Air, Westview. We think of those, right? But Harris County is vast. Cypress, Tomball, Humboldt, right? King, all these places, Clear Lake, they're all in Harris County. He was elected twice in 2020 and again last fall in 2024. Okay. Christian Menifee was elected as Harris County attorney. And the brother is bad. If I ain't say that about Jelanda, she bad too. Right. But Christian, he different. That brother is tough. He's tough. You can tell how brilliant he is just by listening to him speak. You can hear the fire in him, but he's very disciplined, and he makes sure what he's trying to express to you that you understand, whether you got 3 degrees or if you don't have nothing, right? He explains it very succinctly and very clearly, and it gets his point across. He takes his time with his words, right? But let's talk about his fighting. Christian has been doing the work. As county attorney, he's not like avoiding the controversial cases. He's not avoiding suing people. That's what he's supposed to do as the county attorney. He's supposed to defend Harris County residents, protect Harris County residents' interests, so the interests of the county. He's supposed to defend and protect, look out for residents. So he's done that. But when he speaks, and you can go back and you can listen, just like I told you, go back and listen to Jelanda on Saturday. Go back and listen to Christian Menifee's testimony, right? I think it's on his, I know it's on his Instagram page, on his Instagram and on his TikTok. Listen to that testimony. He has a video, I want to say, from either Thursday night or Friday morning. That's tough. But when I tell you that testimony he gave on Saturday, under 2 minutes, and yes, that is shade, but under 2 minutes, so he's within the set time frame, but the resounding response from the people in the gallery or in the galley or in the audience, right? The response from the residents of Southeast Texas, because there were people in there who don't live in the 18th. Remember, it's the 18th, the 29th, and the 9th in the Houston area that are being threatened. But you have people from all over who could be impacted because there's going to be shift in lines, right? The room went wild after his testimony. Wild. And he sounds so like, that is our guy. How can I put it? The people believed. Even if they only believed in them 30 seconds or a minute after he finished, they believed because he was that tough. But his record speaks for himself. He has the electability. He's been elected twice in Harris County. Harris County is the largest in the state of Texas in terms of population and one of the largest in the country. Okay. Harris County is a force to be reckoned with. Christian Menifee is highly electable, and he is raising money. He has outraised everybody else in this race. I am sure he is well over $1 million at this point. Okay. With the next candidate right behind him being Amanda Edwards, who we're going to talk about next. But he has the electability. I didn't mention this about Jelanda Jones. I did tell you that she had about 5 to 6 weeks when she got in the race to raise money and to, campaign. So at the last reporting, she had just over $100,000. I am sure that has increased. Okay, I am sure that has increased, but we won't know that final number until the end of the quarter. So until after September 30th, so about mid-October, early mid-October, when those numbers are tallied, then we will see where what she was able to raise in this quarter. Now, so I've done Jolanda Jones and I've done Christian Menifee. Next, Amanda Edwards. Amanda Edwards, what sets her apart from the other candidates that I've named is she's been running for this office. She has, and she said it out her own mouth. I'm not being shady by saying that, right? But she's been running for this office since 2023, right? She started in 2023 running for Congressional District 18 because our then Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, was running for mayor. So to pivot, Amanda Edwards was in the mayoral race. Sheila Jackson Lee got in it. She pivoted and went to the 18th. Now let's go back further in history. Amanda Edwards was also elected citywide as an at-large member. That is not something that we don't take into consideration. That is major. Electability is the game. That's what you're trying to be, elected. And this is shade. I don't think some of these people in this race have been elected to anything besides perhaps SGA, whether high school or college. And it's shade, but it's not shade. But the reality is this ain't that. This is so much bigger. And so you've got to have that electability. Even if you've never been elected before, you have to have that electability. And I don't know, I can't name any other candidate that has that it factor that would make them be perceived as highly electable. Okay, but I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So Amanda Edwards was a city councilwoman at large. She sought a Senate seat in 2020. So in 2020, she ran for U.S. Senate against John Cornyn. You know, they serve 6-year terms, so he's running for office for next year. Not here nor there. She did not win. She won her primary, but no, she didn't win her primary. She ran. I'm sorry. She did not win her primary for Senate. Amanda Edwards did run for Senate, though. After that, she ran for mayor. Then the 18th for the primary in 2024. Okay, so that primary last March 2024. And she lost to the Congresswoman. It's hard to beat an incumbent, but she lost to the incumbent, the Congresswoman. When the Congresswoman died July of last year, right? I think it was like the 19th of July. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the 19th of July, 2024. Amanda Edwards entered that special election, right? She entered that special election and she lost by a very slim margin against our most recent mayor at the time, Sylvester Turner, right? Sylvester Turner is a statesman. He has been elected for well over 25 years. So he had something that she didn't have. He had a household name that everybody knew. Everybody from every corner knew Sylvester Turner. Whereas Amanda Edwards, I think I heard of her in comparison, right? So she lost that by a slim margin. And so that was her second time running. Remember, the first time she ran, she was running against the Congresswoman seeking to be a part of the general election. Then when the Congresswoman died, she ran again seeking to be elected in the special election to fill Sheila Jackson Lee's seat, or to fill the remainder of Sheila Jackson Lee's term. Let me put it that way. And she did not win. She did not win to Sylvester Turner. Sylvester Turner became our congressman after Erica Lee Carter, Sheila Jackson Lee's daughter, completed the remainder of her 118th congressional term, whereas Amanda and Sylvester were running for the 119th term of Congress. That's important. What we're looking at right now is who is going to complete the remainder of the 119th congressional term. Okay, so let's just mark this. Erica Lee Carter finished the 118th. Sylvester Turner started the 119th. And it's been vacant since March 5th when he passed away early that morning. So it has been vacant since, and it will remain vacant until we get through this election. Amanda entered the race after Sylvester Turner died. So one thing that she can say that can't nobody take away from her, she is committed to representing the 18th Congressional District as their member of Congress, not just as their county attorney, not just as their state rep. The other two, they're office holders. But she is committed. She has ran in this race now for 2 years. I think she announced on Juneteenth of 2023 that she was running for Congress for the 18th Congressional District. So that's June 19th, 2024, June 19th, 2025. And here we are, July 29th, 2025, right? So she has been running for this. I think that sets her apart. She's also raising the money. She has the profile. She's getting the recognition. She's doing well in Black media. I think Michael Eric Dyson recently came out in support of her. Now, when that was said to me, I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, that's good. I'm not knocking it, but he don't live here, but he's influential, right? But what will the impact of his influence be? Right? What will be the impact of my influence? What will be the impact of my team's influence when they evaluate these candidates and we put out an endorsement, right? Those things. And if you're interested in serving on that committee, we are looking for 3 more people. Please email us at prettypettypolitics@gmail.com. Again, prettypettypolitics@gmail.com. If you're interested in being on the committee that intentionally reviews these candidates, their campaigns, their websites, their social media, their fundraising, like truly evaluates them and gives a recommendation to the voters. Okay. And that should be released ahead of early voting. So that should be out early October. All right. So again, my top 3 alphabetical order: Amanda Edwards, Jelonda Jones, Christian Menifee. That's in alphabetical order. That's not in no selection. That's not me playing favorites. I have an idea of what it's going to look like, but I think those 3, it can go any way. It can go any way with those 1, 2, 3. But I believe they're in the top 3. Now, someone asked me, because I was talking to somebody about what I was going to talk about tonight. They asked me, well, who's your number 4? I don't have one. And I'm okay with that, because there's too many of y'all in this damn race. Now, I do expect some people to step aside and do some endorsements. I believe that'll probably start happening very soon. And I think that's smart. I think, and I've been saying that for a couple of weeks. Y'all remember those rooftop conversations, those Heyyy Houston rooftop conversations? I've been saying it. So I think that we're going to see that happen soon. Now, if you're on YouTube, you haven't seen those. Those were on Facebook. But nevertheless, I do think we're going to see some people step aside to suspend their campaigns. That's the proper terminology. Suspend their campaigns and put their support and ask their supporters to back XYZ candidate. And I think you're going to see candidates doing that, supporting the 3 that I just named. I don't think you're going to see them doing it for any other candidates. Now, they could, but I think you're going to see it be between Edwards, Jones, and Menifee. And I don't expect myself to talk about any other candidates besides those 3, probably here on out, unless there's something that's happening in the public sphere. And I know that sounds shady, but it's time for us to get more serious about this, because this is, yes, I'm wearing my pink and green, and yes, this is a serious matter. It is. It really, truly is a serious matter. This is not something we're about to play with, right? This ain't no baking contest. Who can bake the best cake or bake the best pie? This is serious, right? This is our lives. This has global impact. Global impact. It has national impact. The big, beautiful bill passed by 1 vote, and the 18th Congressional District does not have a voting member. This is a serious matter. This has huge implication. Okay. So those are the 3. Now, if I were to talk about the other candidates, I won't. I'm going to let you see the numbers yourself. So as I told you at the top of the hour, so to speak, There was a, let me take this banner down. There was a study by the Hobby School of Public Affairs over at U of H. And, oh goodness, hold on. I can't find my document. Give me a second. I know it's on the screen, but I just need to drive it. Okay. Ooh, this is not good. Goodness, I'm gonna take this down and come back to it. Give me 1 second. The Hobby Center, excuse me, not the Hobby Center, the Hobby School of Public Affairs put this out this week. All right, now I got it open. I need to keep my finger on this. All right. So there we go. I'm about to share it again. Okay. And it's not working again. Let's see. All right. So I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but I do want to go through it. And hopefully you can see it. I want to read this part right here. All right. The Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston conducted a survey of Harris County registered voters to assess their preferences and opinions about a wide range of salient local issues and public officials. The survey was fielded between July 9th and July 18th. So this is a recent survey. This is a recent study. This isn't something that, is old and stale. It's recent. The 18th was not even 2 weeks ago. Okay. They contacted Harris County registered voters through text messages, through which they were directed to an online survey platform with the option to answer the survey in English or Spanish. Why in English or Spanish? Because the 18th Congressional District has a very large Hispanic population. Representatives of the Harris County population of registered voters, the analysis population of 2,300 has a margin of error of give or take 2.04%. Within this overall Harris County survey population, representative samples were also collected for Harris County's 4 county commissioner precincts with the analysis population of 550 for precincts 2, 3, and 4, margin of error 4.18%, and of 650 voters for precinct 1 with a margin of error 3.84%. All right. So it includes the study includes 3 reports in addition to the report on the Texas 18th special election. All right. Matter of fact, let me do this. It's not showing it to you all, and I don't know what to do about that. Oh, here we go. There we go. I couldn't figure it out. I was just reading. So hopefully you all can see it. Hopefully it's bigger for you. If not, I will put a link to this in the comments. Some of you may have seen this already. There's the executive summary, but let me get on down to the survey population demographics. I think that is important. Black likely voters account for 42% of this survey population. White likely voters for 38%. Latino likely voters for 16%, and others for 4%. Women represent 56% of this population, and men 44%. More than 3/5, 62% of this population of likely voters is age 55 or older. Okay. While 27% is between the ages of 35 and 54, and 11% is between the ages of 18 to 34. All right. Now, every time I talk elections, I always talk about the young vote. The young vote has the largest voting potential, but the worst voting performance. Young people do not vote. They social media well. We talk a lot of trash. We got they not we because I'm not young people no more. But they share their thoughts, but they don't share their voices at the same level that they share their messaging online. You gotta vote. It don't make sense till you vote. It we hear you, we hear what you're saying, but we don't see what you're doing. You gotta vote. Okay. And so 18 to 34, that 11% should be much higher. But I always tell you, older people vote. They vote, vote, vote. They're voting their interests. They're voting for their livelihoods and for their children and their grandchildren, right? So it's really important that these campaigns are targeting these groups. All right. Let's see. A little more than 2/3, 68% of these likely voters have a 4-year college degree, while slightly less than 1/3, 32% do not. We are a highly educated district. Democrats account for 62% of the population of likely voters, Republicans for 21%, and independents for 14%, with 3% either unsure their partisan identification or identifying with another party or group, because people do that, right? So let's look at the numbers. All right. As of July 9th, when the fielding of the survey began, as of the writing of this report on July 27th, what day was that? Sunday. Okay. So it started on the 9th, and as of Sunday, the writing of this report, Sunday, the 27th. Okay. Today's the 29th. 23 people had filed statements of candidacy. So 23 people had filed to run in this race. So it's still people whose names are out here who haven't actually filed. Lord have mercy. Lord help us. All right. They had filed statements of candidacy in Texas 18 with the U.S. Federal Election Commission. Remember I talked about the FEC and how you go on fec.gov and see what the money looking like? Who's serious? Who really in this thing? Yeah. 16 using the Democratic Party label, 3 using the Republican Party label, and 2 as independents, 1 using the Independence Party label, and 1 using the label of other. The names of the 6 most viable candidates at the time of the fielding of the survey, which were presented to the likely voters to be evaluated. All right. The 6 most viable, and I'm going to talk about the other 3 that I have not spoken about already. I'm gonna tell you're gonna hear why I didn't mention them. Okay. Amanda Edwards, Democratic Party, and these are in alphabetical order. George Foreman the fourth, not to be confused with the daddy, the boxer. Independence Party, Jolanda Jones, Democratic Party. Isaiah Martin, Democratic Party. Christian Menifee, Democratic Party. Carmen Maria Montiel, Republican Party. Okay. The partisan labels of the candidates were not included in the initial survey question, in which likely voters were asked if they had a favorable or unfavorable opinion of the candidate, but were included in the subsequent vote intention question. The Texas 18 likely voters were asked if they had a favorable or unfavorable opinion of each of these 6 Texas 18 candidates, or if they did not know enough about the candidate to have an opinion. Table 1 reveals that the proportion of Texas 18 likely voters with a favorable opinion of the candidates ranges from the high of 43% Edwards, 40% Menifee, 38% Jones, to lows of 22% Foreman, 16% Martin, and 11% Montiel. The proportion of likely voters with an unfavorable opinion of these candidates ranges from a high of 27% Jones to a set of lows clustered in a narrow band of between 10% for Menifee, 13% Edwards, 11 Foreman, 11 Montiel, and 12 for Martin. The proportion of Texas likely voters who did not know enough about the candidates to have an opinion of the ranges from highs of 78% Montiel, 72% Martin, 67% Foreman, to the lows of 50% Menifee, 44% Edwards, and 35% Jones. Now, why don't any of these numbers surprise me? These last numbers of people who really don't know the candidates. Longevity. The first 3 have never been elected to office. And so they don't have any branding. They don't have any branding behind them. The latter three, all elected officials, but Jones, who has the least, don't know enough about him. Jones at 35%, where 35% of the people studied. Most people know Jelana Jones because of her electability. That's what I just traced through, right? She has been elected in some major offices. Now she's in the state house, school district, city hall, state house. So throughout the district, people know Jelana Jones. Again, they know her, right? That matters. Christian Menifee and Amanda Edwards. Amanda Edwards was a city councilwoman. Amanda Edwards has ran for federal elections. This is her fourth federal election. Remember, she ran for U.S. Senate in 2020, and she's now in her third attempt to be the Congress member for the 18th Congressional District. And I say attempt, and I want you to understand, I'm not saying like she done lost 3 times, but more so, or twice, but more so what I'm saying is she ran the first time free and clear. She ran against the incumbent. The incumbent died. She jumped in that race, lost by one, I want to say 2 or 3 votes to Sylvester Turner, right? Because that was a precinct chair. We'll talk about precinct chairs in the coming weeks. I'll do a video about precinct chairs and the importance of them. But she lost that tight, in a very tight margin. And then she re-entered it because Sylvester Turner passed away. Okay. So you can see the numbers here in the table. Favorable, unfavorable, do not know, right? Don't know. So these are the lower ones. These are the higher ones. And I think these speak loudly. I don't think that you ignore these. Okay. Now, since the other 3 have been mentioned, now we'll talk about them before I go to the next page. George Foreman, his name is out there because he has branding, not his branding per se, but his inherited branding. It's important. It's important that your parents give you some inheritance, because he inherited a bold name. George Foreman is a household name. Some of y'all houses still have George Foreman. What's those things called? Those little grills. I can't even think of them. Oh, the George Foreman grill, right? Some of your households still have those. So he has name recognition that going on. That helps him. That's why of these 3 at the bottom, he ranks with a better number in terms of don't know or do not know, right? It's because of that name branding. George Foreman, that's his name, George Foreman IV, right? So his daddy did that for him. I have not seen him doing much campaigning. Not saying he's not doing it, but I haven't seen it, okay? Next, you have Isaiah Martin. Isaiah Martin has, remember, when did this end? Sunday, the 27th. Isaiah Martin has social media. He's on TikTok every night. And he's on talking about how much Trump and Abbott hate him and what they're trying to do to him. All right. And then he lets people jump on his TikTok lives. And he sits on TikTok live almost every night. No shade to him. This is the reality. And he's utilized that space very well. Right. But that doesn't translate over to your grandma, your auntie, these folks who vote, your pawpaw, your uncle, the cafeteria lady at the elementary school. This is not resonating with these folks, okay? Because they're not on TikTok. And I told you already, voters 55 and up, they vote at a higher rate. They vote more than any other group, okay? So he's not resonating there. And you got to resonate with them. Then Carmen Maria Montiel. Yes, the 18th Congressional District has a very large Hispanic population, but that very large Hispanic population is not dominant in voting for a myriad of reasons. And we don't have to get into that, for a myriad of reasons. The other thing is this district is heavily Democratic. Okay. Not Hispanic. Republicans make up about just over 20%. I want to say 21% of the voters in Congressional District 18. That's not going to get you very far, right? Especially at a time when we're so partisan, where everything is red versus blue. right? It's damn near like the Crips and the Bloods. I mean, it's bad. But because of the extremes that are happening in our society, that's not going to resonate well for her. Plus, her messaging, she's not paying attention to the audience, who the voters are. I've heard her speak multiple times, and the issues that she's speaking on do not resonate with the voters and the residents of the 18th Congressional District, because her messaging is very narrow to one population. Okay. And so it's not cutting it. Next, we have net favorability rating. Now, what this means is who people like. Okay. So Edwards and Menifee are deadlocked at 30%, having the highest net favorability ratings, while Martin at 4%, Montiel at 0%, Jones at 11%, and Foreman at 11% in between. Now, let me tell you why Jolanda Jones is right there with George Foreman. Because but for George Foreman being in this race, I think Jolanda Jones would be in the 20s. George Foreman, again, has a household name. Now I'm going to go ahead and say this. Y'all can say I'm being biased, because I am. Okay? I am being biased. George Foreman, having his name, can't take it away from him, because I love my name, right? George Foreman, I would be so upset with the 18th Congressional District if George Foreman was elected just based on his name. We don't need, what was that movie, The Perfect Gentleman, Distinguished Gentleman? Y'all remember that movie with Eddie Murphy, Distinguished Gentleman, where he ran for office and it was because his name was that of someone who had been elected before. I haven't watched that movie in years. I just know that he got elected off name recognition, right? Not because he's was viable or any of that. So I think that is why, if I had to guess, that is why he and Jolanda Jones are polling the same, right? And then I'm not surprised Carmen had 0% and Isaiah had 4%. I'm not surprised at all. What I will say about Isaiah, I think once Isaiah gets some structure around him and wisdom, political wisdom, he needs someone in his corner who is knowledgeable and who can, how can I put it, coach him, but he also has to be coachable, right? He has to be willing to receive the critiques. And once he gains a bit more emotional maturity, because I was already thinking it after hearing him speak in June at a Thursday morning breakfast, that he's lacking emotional maturity. But that outburst and that foolishness, that what I call a TUBI scene from Thursday night, that let me know he lacks the emotional maturity. There's a way to cut up in a formal setting without being outside of decorum. You can push it all the way to the line, right? And I'll give you an example. My sister and I talked about this earlier. You remember when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, remember that whole thing about, I don't think you can see because of your eyelashes, that whole thing. And then Congresswoman Crockett, instead of responding to what I would call inappropriate or insulting commentary by her colleague, instead of responding to her directly, she changed her position and she directed a question that really got her point across, right? She directed a question to the chair of the committee. So she took it off of her and put it on to the committee chair. And then you see Congressman Raskin, who could not hold it together, right? Because she knew how to play the game. You got to learn how well to push it. You got to know how to do that. I tell my students all the time, you got to know how to debate me. You're not just going to come in here and cut up. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm going to let you go as far as you want to go, but you're not going to get a reaction out of me if you're not playing the game right. Because I'm not going to be childish with you, but I will be very skillful with you. Jasmine Crockett demonstrated the skillfulness, and I think Isaiah Martin, let's just say it wasn't planned, even though I think it was a stunt that was kind of preconceived that went too far, meaning why he landed in jail. But let's just say it's not. That's my thoughts, though, that it was. And I have not hid that since the first night, right? But let's just say it was not a stunt. Let's just say it was natural. That shows he lacks emotional, he lacks emotional maturity, right? That also shows that he does not respect um he does not respect legislative policy, or legislative, not policy, but legislative processes, right? You don't have to like this redistricting plan. I hate it. I loathe it. Like, I'm disgusted by it. But I wouldn't have went up there acting like that. I would have held it together better. I would have asked questions. I would have posed things to the dais. I would have used my time much more wisely. I probably would have, a perfect example again, Christian Menifee on Saturday, Amanda Edwards on Thursday. Amanda Edwards testified in Austin on Thursday. Amazing testimony and timely. Christian Menifee on Saturday, amazing testimony and timely. Jelanda Jones, amazing questioning, because she was at the dais, so she questioned people who were testifying. And that's the thing. You can testify, you have 2 minutes to give your testimony, and then you may be questioned by members of the House Redistricting Committee. Okay? So I think that is something that each of you should go back and watch, and I will put those links to those videos. I will put those links in the comments at the end of this video. So let's look at, we looked at this one already, right? Yeah. Our next slide is 6, and I don't know why it's jumping. All right. Vote intention among likely voters in November. So the likely voters who participate in this study, this is their intended votes for November. The first thing I want you to catch is 27% of people polled are unsure. They're either unsure or they did not want to share, but they picked unsure. All right. So let's just so over a quarter of the people polled are already like, okay. Next, we have Christian and Amanda. And the reason why you see Christian's name for the above Amanda's is his 19 is probably a percent, like a point something above hers, because they've been very consistent with alphabetical order, and they've been consistent with those ties with those names, the name order. So you see Amanda's name and then Christian's, and in this one you see Menifee and then Amanda. So you see Christian and Amanda. So I think that's important to point out. Carmen Maria Montiel, 14%, does not surprise me. Why? Because she's the Republican candidate that is in this race who is performing, right? Even though I don't think she's a viable candidate for the Republican ticket. She is. You cannot take that away from her. Now, this is not a primary race, though, right? It's not. So it doesn't matter that she's a Republican in this very saturated, Democratic saturated district. But because she's a Republican, what percentage of this district is made up of Republicans? What did I tell you? 21%. So it's not surprising that she would rank well here. Jelanda Jones, 14 as well. Okay. And I keep telling you, those are the three. Edwards, Jones, and Menifee. Those are the top three. Okay. George Foreman, 4%. I already said it. Name recognition. And then Isaiah Martin coming in at the end with 3%. Doesn't surprise me. I don't think people are opposed to youth, meaning younger elected officials, because he is old enough. He meets the qualifications of the U.S. Constitution, Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. He meets it. Texas resident. He's a citizen, and he is over age 25. He's 25 or older. He's 27 years old. Okay. But I think that he's not performing well based on what he has done at this point and what he has not communicated, right? But I do think over time, And with some good coaching and preparation, I think he will be a viable candidate for some office soon. I would say within the next um 7 years, 5 to 7 years, right? I could see it. I want to say 10, um, meaning for Congress. If he were to run for something else within the next 5 to 7 years, I think it's his, hands down. But he's going to have to recover from last week. He's going to have some type of, he has to become a fixture of the community, and he is not that. He doesn't have a name. After this week, this news cycle is dwindling out. It's only so many more times you can show that video, right? Because it's always something new coming out, right? So he has to have something that has sustainability. And a viral moment is cool for only the moment. We used to talk about 15 minutes of fame. People don't even get 15 minutes of fame no more. You get a viral moment, and you better suck everything that's in. You better, you better get the most you can out of it, because it's only going to last for a quick moment. Okay. So if voting were today, or let's say if voting were next Tuesday, right? At this time, this is what people are feeling. They're unsure. So some folks might go in that polling station and be like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. So, or maybe it's the phone calls, it's the text messages, it's the door knocking, it's the signage, it's the, I saw you on the news, I saw you on a YouTube commercial, I saw your social media on Facebook and on Instagram, I saw you at church. It's those moments, it's that visibility and that ability to connect with voters. Voters want to hear solutions. We all know what the problem is, baby. You can only tell us the problem so many times, baby. Do you have a medicine? Do you have a solution? Do you have a plan? Because that's what we want to hear. Okay. So let's look at the demographics, vote intention of Texas. You look at these numbers overall. It's the same numbers as the previous page, but it's broken down by gender, race, ethnicity, age, education, and partisanship. Okay. So Edwards does the best with women. All right. Edwards does the best with women, followed closely by Menifee and Jones. Okay. Montiel coming in fourth there. All right. With men, Montiel and Menifee, followed by Edwards and Jones. With white voters, Montiel, with white voters, Montiel, followed by Menifee and Edwards. Montiel is white and Latino, okay? Meaning she presents white. And we know in Texas, not just Texas, in the census count, there's Hispanic white, there's Hispanic black, there's Hispanic non-white, Hispanic non-black. Okay, like, so let's not take this personal way I'm saying this stuff, right? Amongst Latino voters, Montiel 21, Jones 14, Edwards 14, Menifee 8. Black voters, right? Black voters, which makes up the largest population, Menifee 24, Edwards 21, Jones 21, Montiel 5. Okay, 18 to 34, Jones 14, Menifee and Montiel 9, Edwards 2. 35 to 54, Edwards 24, Menifee 20, Montiel 13, and Jones 11. 55 and older. Okay. Menifee 21, Edwards 19, Montiel 16, Jones 15. College degree, Menifee 24, Edwards 21, Montiel 14, Jones 10. No college degree, Menifee 9, Edwards 14, Montiel 16, Jones 20. Okay. Democratic voters, Menifee and Edwards locked at 24. Montiel, 0. Jones, 21. Independent, 23. Menifee, 23. Menifee, 14. Edwards, 5. Montiel, 7. Jones. And then Republicans, 2 Menifee, 4 Edwards, 62 Montiel, and 1 Jones. That's not a surprise. It's the same thing. It's the flip when it comes to Democratic voters. So I shared this with you tonight as a way to demonstrate to you what the polls are saying, right? So my opinions have been consistent even before this polling came out. Again, this polling just ended Sunday, the 27th. Y'all saw the dates, okay? And again, I will put the link, not my PDF, not what I downloaded to my MacBook, but I will put the link to the PDF, the link that was published by U of H. I will put that in the comments so that you can see for yourself, okay? So again, 3 candidates that we are looking at as the most viable, the front runners. The 4th, if I had to add a 4th, would be Montiel, right? Because I don't foresee George Foreman outperforming her, because the Republicans who will participate in this election, they make up 21% of the district. I don't foresee us having a high turnout election. It's not going, I don't believe there'll be 30, 40, 50,000 people participating in this election. Go back and look at how many people participated in the 2024 primary. 2024 primary had people running from every office in the land, from Washington, D.C. down to your local government. So if those numbers were low, and that's a bigger, traditionally bigger election, and this is a special election that not a lot of stuff about to be on the ballot, we are going to have a very small number of people. I would love to see about 25,000 people show up and vote on election day. I don't think that's going to happen. I want to be proven wrong. I think it's going to be about 7,000, maybe 10. 10 is pushing it, right? So these numbers, you know, those teams, they're going to be studying this. Some of them going to turn their nose up at it like they don't know, you know, they don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, and you don't know what you're doing either. But some of them are going to take this and probably have already broken this down and are already strategizing, if not even already implementing a plan to raise their numbers, to improve the numbers that are in this report for their particular campaign. So with that being said, I want to see if there are any questions. If not, that concludes that part of tonight's show. The next thing I want to talk about, let me see if there are any questions. I don't think there are. The next thing that I want to talk about, we talked about the report. I've given you my top 3, with the 4th person being Carmen Montiel. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is, what do you think? It's back to school time. So please, it's back to school time. There are a lot of events coming up this weekend, starting as early as this weekend, where organizations around the city will be doing back to school giveaways, back to school drives. Make sure that you're not out there being greedy, getting stuff that you don't need. In fact, make sure if you have it that you're giving, you're donating, you're contributing, and you're helping someone. Also, adopt a family. Ask your pastor. Ask someone, hey, at work, do you know a family that could use some support, right? And don't run to social media telling what you did. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. All right. So I will be back on with you here very soon. Of course, if anything happens in the political sphere, I will certainly be talking about it on Pretty Petty Politics. But before I go, I want to remind you that you can go back and you can watch these hearings that took place over the last 5 days, starting on the 24th through the 28th, or past 4 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. So from Thursday to Monday, we had 3 hearings, one Thursday, one Saturday, one Monday. I want to encourage you to go back and watch those videos. They're long. You can fast forward them. I also want you, if you did not see the full thing, well, I call it a Tubi movie. I actually called it that when I just saw the viral moment because I done seen too much. I've been doing this too long. I've watched Scandal probably more than any of y'all all of y'all combined. But I really do think that when you watch it, you can see why I call it a Tubi movie. Like this is some cheap acting, especially when he tripped and fell over himself. He was not pushed, he was not shoved. And I didn't say it today. I let my students say it. I did not say, oh, I think. Nope. I let them say it themselves. Why? Because we needed to have a real open conversation, right? But he fell on his own. And it's probably because he ain't having no socks with them loafers on. And he was whatever. I think he was being dramatic. And I want you to pay attention when he fall. I'm gonna put this video in the notes. But when he falls, there's a black lady at the back of the room. I think she had on pink or red, and she looks at him like she didn't look like she was concerned. She looked like how I looked in my living room watching it. Like, if you don't get up off that floor cutting up like this, it's like she wasn't moved. The other thing I want to say about that testimony is you did not hear anybody excited. You didn't hear the excitement in the room about his testimony. In fact, when you hear applause, it's almost as if they are applauding the fact that he was stopped after he had gone well over the time, after he had refused to obey the decorum and to keep order. He had moved from having the privilege of testifying into disrupting a meeting. The time measurement of 2 minutes wasn't a punishment. The 2 minutes was so that everybody could testify. They had an overflow room there. They had an overflow room in Houston. They had an overflow room last night in Arlington, right? 2 minutes because there are so many people wanting to testify and who should rightfully so be able to testify. So when you have the audacity, the unmitigated gall to not just go over your time, but to insult the body and to basically give your middle finger to everyone else in the audience by continuously disrupting the meeting, that's on you. You got to own that. And I'm not going to forget it. Now, I hope he improves, absolutely, because I believe that he has a gift. Like there's something that he can do. But this ain't it, and this ain't the way to go about it. And that's going to be the last of me talking about him online in that regard, because I don't want to bash the brother. But I believe correction. You get corrected when you mess up. All right. So you messed up online, you're going to get corrected online. And so I do think it's fair to analyze what I call a Tubi scene, Tubi, a cheap film, right? What I think it's okay to critique what happened Thursday night, but to also be hopeful for his tomorrow, right? But let's talk about the other candidates. I think you will see probably between 8 and 10 candidates suspend their campaigns between now and August 15th. That's in a couple of weeks, we will see people suspend their campaigns. I think you will probably get some as early as this week, and rightfully so, especially with the publishing of this report by U of H. If you read NPR, Houston's NPR station, their Houston media, if you read their website, there's an article on there, a very recent article on there, and it's talking about, it's quoting a professor from Rice. Like, there's some defined characteristics around this race. That's how I know that there will be people to drop out. There also will be people to drop out because they don't have the money to fund it. Some people need to go to work. Some people will drop out because they can see the writing on the wall, right? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see like, oh, this, I can't compete here. I can't compete nor compare here. Let me go mind some other business. Let me go support somebody. So I do think that we will see people come out of this race by election day. I think there will be less than 7 people in this, 7 or less in this race, but there will be a runoff. In the perfect situation, there wouldn't be more than 3 people. In the absolute perfect situation, there will only be 2. And if we want to just make it magnificently perfect, we would just get behind one candidate, and whichever one is the one that we would move forward. But there will be at least 2. And I won't give the names of who I think they are, but I will tell you who my top 3 are, plus my 1. All right. My 1, I don't see her winning at all, and that's Carmen Montiel. Right. But again, Amanda Edwards, Jelana Jones, Christian Menifee, alphabetical order, or Menifee, Jones, Edwards, or Jones, Edwards, Menifee, or Jones, Menifee, Edwards. Them 3 right there, who all happen to be attorneys, by the way. But those 3 right there, I think those are the 3 you set your eyes on. Those are the 3 that you study. Those are the 3 that you evaluate weekly. Maybe every Tuesday you check to see what is in the media about them. What has changed with their platform? What's their consistency? You know, keep an eye on those 3 and you formulate your decision based on those 3. That is my opinion. You don't have to take it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at those 3 and I'm going to make a decision based on those 3. I am leaning way hard for one of them, though. I am. Okay. And so I encourage you, the viewers, the voters, to study those 3 candidates. Amanda, Jolanda, and Christian. Okay. Or Amanda, Christian, and Jolanda, however you want to put it. Those 3, or Jolanda, Amanda, and however you want to call they 3 names, them the 3 you watch. And so again, shout out to the 3 of them for their testimony and their lines of questioning. As far as the state representative, Jelana Jones, she did a magnificent job on Saturday. I mean, phenomenal. Christian Menifee shut down the House. He tore it down on Saturday. And Amanda Edwards did phenomenal in Austin. The messaging was clear and concise. They made their points, and they did so like a leader, right? They did so in a way that, yeah, they could represent me, right? They could absolutely represent me. That's how I felt when all 3 of them, listening to all 3 of them. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm loving it, right? So that's all I got tonight. I will drop information in the chat, not in the chat, but in the comments, so that those of you who are viewing this, you can go and look at the things that I've referenced. I'll also include the link to the PDF of the study done by the University of Houston Hobby School of Public Affairs, so that you can see for yourself what the data shows. Again, that study was done between July 9th, which was a Saturday, I believe. No, July 9th. That was a Wednesday. So between July 9th and July 27th, which was just this Sunday. So 2 days ago. All right. So that's all I have. I love you all. Thank you so much. I was on here way longer than I intended, but I think you found value in it. Good night. Peace out.